Piecemakers Country Store. Depending on who you ask, the Peacemakers are either a group of crafting Christians who want to help the community or a duplicitous cult that separates families and exploits its members. It seems that members of the community who get free sandwiches seem to love them. But ex-members who gave up their families and their property seem to think that they are a cult. Now, this story has been going on for decades, and it seems that people are as divided as they have ever been. But the courts have made their decision and they vote that it's a cult. Peacemakers have lost numerous lawsuits over the years, but this most recent one has caused them to close their doors. In this video, I will tell you about the latest court case that brought this to the public's attention. I'll tell you about who the Peacemakers are and give you a brief history, very brief history. Plus, we'll go into the controversy in the community. Why are people so divided here? Now, what brought about this publicity right now? Piecemakers Country Store has been operating in Costa Mesa, California for over 40 years now. It recently had to shutter its doors because it lost a lawsuit. The lawsuit brought by Michelle McKinney alleged that she had worked for over 20 years for only $10 a week in allowance, that she was not paid overtime, that food stamps were taken out in her name, but she never saw them, that the group separated her from her daughter and then sent the girl away when she became a difficult adolescent, or as we know them, an adolescent. That McKinney was an adult with disabilities and that the group took advantage of her. Now, the jury agreed and they awarded her $4.5 million. Peacemakers tried to file for bankruptcy, but they were not permitted to file without first liquidating their assets. The store is now closed, and many people who lived in the community and who went there for sewing and quilting workshops are upset. They are pleading for help. However, this is not the first lawsuit that alleges cult-like abuse, exploitation, and coercion from these people. In fact, there are judgments against them going back over 20 years now. Maybe 30 years now. Jeez, what year is it? Anyway, who are they? Okay, the Peacemakers is technically known as the Body of Christ Fellowship, but this is a very common name amongst Christian sects. They run a crafting store, which was shuttered, and they also have a construction business. The men run the construction business. They follow the teachings of a woman named Marie Kolosinski, who found Jesus in the late 60s. A lot of people were finding Jesus in the late 60s. She died in 2012 at the age of 90, but the community continues. Now, Kolosinski preached a fire and brimstone Christian-based ideology. Now, they live communally in these homes in Costa Mesa, California, a number of homes. They believe that the fellowship is their real family, not their blood relatives. Here's actually a quote from a former member. "It was really neat in the beginning," says Marion Simmons, 62, about Peacemakers, a booming retail business come Christian sect that began 20 years ago as a Bible study group in the home of Marie Kolosinski. "We all came and fellowshiped together, but soon," say estranged members, Kolosinski, 72, so this was written a while ago, began preaching communal living, no sex, and limited communication among family members in order to bring her followers closer to God. Marie used to say, "If you're not miserable, if your flesh isn't being put to death, then God isn't dealing with you," recalls Paula Foster, 44, who after 11 years broke away from Peacemakers in 1982. That is pretty extreme. So this is an excerpt from Ronald M. Enroth, Churches That Abuse, Chapter 6, Elitism and Persecution. Abusive churches see themselves as special. In the early days, the group experienced healings, spoke in tongues, and conducted baptism in a local swimming pool. Well, that sounds nice. However, somewhere along the line, Marie and the fellowship began changing from a charismatic Bible study to a strict authoritarian communal group. The change occurred gradually, with Marie slowly introducing teachings that contradicted the Bible. While the group claims to live peacefully as a communal witness, they own several houses in the Costa Mesa area. Their doctrine and practices have evolved over the years to a point of drastic departure from orthodoxy. Marie believes that she has come through the veil, that she experienced the death of her flesh in 1978 and now walks in sinless perfection. As the only one to have yet begun to walk in the fullness, she dictates every aspect of the lives of her followers so that they too someday may join her in her exalted state. If they should be so lucky. Now, the Peacemakers are staunchly anti-government. Kolosinski actually went to prison in, I think it was 2007, for refusing to get a permit from the health department to operate her tea room. She served about a week in jail for that. Now, after that, she wrote letters to prisoners and she sent them $20. Kolosinski died in 2012, but the peacemakers continue under a partnership. So this seems pretty clear. What is the controversy? Well, this cult thing is not what many members of the community see. They actually go to classes. This woman attended classes. Others go to see friends and to eat sandwiches. Many people in Costa Mesa actually have a positive impression of the group because many people are in the periphery. They're not on the inside. This video is a plea from peacemakers to the community after the verdict. Now, after watching this video and hearing it from their mouths, their own side of the story, I see why the jury ruled as they did. I am not going to call them dead-eyed, but if I do a rate my cult, I might. Because look at these people. If you pulled over at a roadside diner and saw all of these people, you would move on to the next diner. My culty sense is tingling here. Something about them. I'm going to put allegedly in the corner, allegedly. Now, this is not the first lawsuit against the group. In 1992, a couple sued them for the return of their house. This is from the LA Times. The Simons' lawsuit is the third in the last 9 years against the Christian group, which began as a gathering of hippies in the 1960s. It has evolved into a 40-member group that operates a 12,000 square foot store. Members live communally in 6 houses on Swan Drive and Stromboli Road and walk together more than a mile to work each morning. The Simons' alleged that the commune is a cult-like community that used physical and emotional intimidation to coerce them to give up their property, refrain from caring for their children, and abstain from sexual relations with each other. This is another article, a completely different article from a completely different case. This one is from 2000, and it tells the story of a son who was angry that his mother was kept away from him by the group. This is from the article. Halliburton's mother joined the Peacemakers more than 20 years ago. He said she has since cut off all contact with him. On Wednesday, Halliburton said he sent the emails, which portrayed the group as a cult to Piecemakers Country Store customers after his mother failed to attend his college graduation. I was furious, said Halliburton, who picketed in front of the Peacemakers' home last summer. My mother wasn't allowed to go to my graduation, and this is because the Peacemakers wanted to sue him for defamation. Tearing apart families is a reoccurring theme in this group. I hope that this man has somehow found peace. He would be 51 right now, and that is just heartbreaking. That story is just heartbreaking. Now, there is much more to the Peacemakers story. The more I look at it, the more fascinating this group actually is. I might have to do a rate my cult because these are out of control nanas. That is crazy. Whoever heard of such a thing? Plus, you know I love a female cult leader, especially a fire and brimstone one. It's just, mwah. But here are some key takeaways. One person's cult is another support group, especially those on the periphery. 2, cults come in all forms. And 3, just because it's some sweet old lady with a Bible doesn't mean that she won't ruin your family and trick you out of your house. Now, remember, if your nana has joined a knitting group, it probably is just a bunch of old ladies making booties for the grandkids. Probably. Check out my last video. Not everything is a cult. Because not everything is a cult. In fact, I was pretty shocked when I found out about these people because you know I love hobbies. You know I love crafts. But even hobbies, even crafts can be turned into something very dark, as the jury decided. Keep doing crafts. You don't need to do it with people. You never give up your house because you want to sew. You can just sew. It's okay. It's okay. Check out my video on hobby maxing.